Let's talk about performance. Performance is the second P of the PIIPS framework and really important. Often one that people will quite often focus on. It's one of the more obvious ones. We would like to think that we're high performers. We've been high performers in our past life, in jobs that we've had, and we want to be high performers in the roles that we're in now. And for those of us who are business owners, the performance is a real key to being able to adapt to what's worked for us before and make it work for us now. Because sometimes the things that have worked for us in the past then hold us back when we try and apply the same principles to something new. So we need to be able to, and we want to be able to adapt that to be able to make it work. So here are my 5 tips for performance. So the first one is to set a standard, not just a goal. So a goal gives you direction, but a standard is really going to define how you show up along the way. So it's really important to think about what's the standard that you are setting yourself. And I know with a lot of people, especially the people that I work with, probably hold ourselves to a higher standard than people hold to us. But we need to be really clear on what that minimum standard is for each week. Now, you'll have heard me talk about gold, silver, and bronze as an approach, renaming it slightly because it's used elsewhere. So I want to make sure I'm not stealing other people's names for their methods that they use. But what we're looking at is recognizing that every day you will give 100%, but every day that 100% is going to be different, and being able to manage and accept and assess how you can show up each day is really important. So when we set ourselves a standard, that helps us to show up with intention, to show up with purpose, and to show up in a way that aligns with what's important to us. It helps us to show up how we feel we want to show up. And that is really important because it's a big part of who we are. So last week talked about identity, the importance of stepping into that future version of you who is already successful, who is already doing the things that you want to be able to do. And within that identity is the standard, that future version of ourselves that's already really successful. Do they have the same standard as what we're holding to ourselves now, or do they have a different standard? Maybe they have a higher standard. So we need to set the standard for ourselves. The goal gives us direction. The standard defines how we show up every day along the way. Number 2, don't rely on motivation, build discipline. I've talked about this once. I have talked about this 100 times because it comes up so much. People often find that it's a real challenge staying motivated. And that's very, very true. And motivation is a feeling, and we can't always control the feelings that we have. We might be able to learn to control them. We can learn to change them once we have them, but we can't bring those emotions in all of the time. So if we're relying on motivation, it's not going to be consistent. Whereas discipline is much more action. It's about making a decision. So we can't rely on motivation. We need to determine the actions that we want to take. So we need to create that plan. And then we need to be disciplined in following that plan. Now, this also comes up in different ways. And actually, I've had a client session this afternoon where we've been talking about this. And they were saying, I feel like I need to be more disciplined. But what they meant and what came up through the coaching conversation was actually they want to be more intentional. They want to be more purposeful in the action that they're taking. So they want to be more disciplined in terms of how they show up, but they still want to make sure that those actions are intentional and with purpose. So we want to make sure, again, linking back into what I said in point 1, we want to make sure that what we're doing aligns with what's important to us, and that it is intentional, and that it is with purpose, and that makes it much easier for us to be disciplined. So we need to be really clear on what our non-negotiables are, and we need to remove that permission that we give ourselves to not do something when we don't feel like it. Yeah, if that is a non-negotiable, we need to show up and get it done whether we feel like it or not. Now, that might mean that we need to chunk it down into smaller tasks so that it makes it easier for us to show up and get it done. But we do need to take away this permission that we give ourselves and remove that permission to not do it when we don't feel like it. This is, the people who are successful don't give themselves that permission. They show up and they get the non-negotiables done. Now, the non-negotiables for you will be very specific to you. It might be very different to what I determine is a non-negotiable. It's what's not negotiable for you. It's what's not negotiable for you to get to where you want to get to. So it's going to look different for different people. You need to determine what your non-negotiables are, and then don't give yourself permission to not do it. If it's a non-negotiable, it's non-negotiable, not just for other people, but for you too. Number 3, protect your energy like your progress depends on it, because it does. Your peak performance, that high performance, isn't about doing more. It's about managing your time, your energy, and your focus. So again, this has come up in a coaching session today. Yeah, and the person, said at the end, "I'm just glad you haven't given me more stuff to do." And I'm like, being successful is not about doing more. It's about recognizing what's most important. What are your priorities? What are your non-negotiables? And working to that, showing up to that, being consistent with that. So you protect your energy, because when you are carrying things and you're procrastinating and you're not getting things done, that drains your energy. When you're doing things that don't align with your values, that drains your energy. When you're working with people who don't align with you, they don't work well with you, it's not a good fit for you, that drains your energy. So you need to protect your energy like your progress depends on it, because it does. It's not about doing more. It's about managing your time, your energy, and your focus. So be really clear on what drains you and what fuels you. And how can you plan around that to make sure that the things that you do that really charge you are protected and preserved and respected, that almost they become your non-negotiables. And what is it that drains you? And how can you reduce that or even remove that from your weeks, from your schedule? Yeah, how can you protect the things that are most important? Number 4 is to break it down to build it up. So momentum comes from progress and definitely not from perfection. So perfectionists often procrastinate because they want to get it right. They want to not just get it done, they want to get it done to that high level. And this links into holding yourself to a high standard. But there's a difference between high standard, which is achievable, and perfection, which isn't. So we want to make sure that we are always in momentum. We don't want to be pausing. We can slow down. We can reduce it to align it with the energy and other things that are going on that are important to us, but we don't want to be pausing or stopping. So actually keeping that momentum going, that progress comes from momentum. So the more you can break down the tasks and activities into those small things that are very easy to get done, very easy to tick off the list, you're going to see those visible wins, and that's going to help you to keep the momentum going. The momentum is what's going to help bring the motivation. The discipline is what's going to bring the results, which again helps you to feel motivated. So the more we can keep things moving, the more we can keep things moving with the things that are most important, the more we will feel that motivation to continue and to keep going. So if you are struggling with the momentum right now, if you're struggling to keep your energy up and to keep things going, because that definitely happens. Like, that is not an unusual thing to happen. Look at what's draining your energy. Look at what fuels your energy. Look at how you can plan and protect that. But look at how you can keep momentum going. Once you stop, it's so much harder to get going again. So think about what you can do to start or to make sure that you do keep going and you keep that momentum going. And so the 5th and final point from me on the topic of performance is that confidence comes from the doing. So you don't wait for confidence. You earn it by showing up and proving to yourself that you can. You need to go out there. You need to get yourself out there and gather that evidence that proves to yourself that you have that level of competence to achieve the task that's in front of you. You cannot gather that through positive affirmations. You cannot gather that by positive self talk. Those things will help, but they are not going to shift the evidence that is in your brain that tells you that you can. So don't wait for confidence. You earn it by showing up and proving to yourself that you can. You need to look for the signs that you can. So if you are seeing what you look for. Ultimately, your brain will see what you tell it to look for. So you need to tell it to look for all of the things that say that you are successful, you are confident, you are someone who gets things done, you are a high performer, you are able to do all of the things that are in front of you, you are someone that is going to make it happen. That confidence comes from doing, but you need to be able to see that you are doing it. You need to be able to collect that evidence that says that you can. And the more you do that, the more that inner confidence is just going to grow. It's just going to build. It's just going to get bigger and better. And the more your confidence grows, the more opportunities you're going to seize, the more you're going to show up for, the more you're going to make happen. And that is going to grow your confidence even more. So don't wait for it. Just get out there and get it. It's not going to come to you. You have to go out there and make it happen. There are so many things around the key skills, the key habits, the key behaviors of our most successful people. Knowing what high performance looks like for you and what you need to do to be a high performer is key here. Look back on the things that you have done, look at what you've done really well, and look at what you did to make that happen. Look at your successful habits, look at your successful behaviors, look at the way you showed up and did things. Look at the structure that you had in place. Look at how you planned. How did you prepare? How were you intentional and purposeful in showing up? You know what makes you a high performer. So you need to write that recipe to make all of those things happen. The 5 things that I've talked about today are going to help with that. But look at where you can raise your standard this week, not by doing more, but by showing up with more intention and with purpose. And I would love to hear how that goes for you. And then next week, we will be back talking about structure, which is the final letter of the PIIPS framework. And I am looking forward to sharing more on that with you then.